What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of I Don't Have an Accent, You Do. It gives me great pleasure to introduce one of the boys from back home, Mr. Gary Dowling. Gary, thanks for joining the podcast, mate.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
It's been a while, right?
Yeah.
I haven't been home for a couple of years, but still, I mean, we're in the same group text. That I was thinking the other day, how long has that WhatsApp group been going?
Gosh. It's got to be a decade, is it?
It's
Got to
got to
be
be easy,
at
right?
least a decade. Yeah.
Because we've
So
known
there's
each other
some.
for probably 20 years.
Yeah, at least. I mean, what are you, 30,
35 I am
35
now.
now? Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I would say. I think I joined the Coyd at 13, and I'm 37 this year.
yeah.
So it's coming
Mental.
up, yeah, 24, 25 years, which is just madness, really.
I love it.
Yeah.
But I mean, first off, straight off the bat, Ironman, half Ironman, all the endurance stuff you've done is mega. And so excited to talk about that. When we met, it was just golf, and that's all it was,
Yeah,
right? Golf and going out on the weekend and yelling at the TV when United lost or won.
you got it.
Where does it start? When do you decide to dive into endurance athletics and endurance sports?
It's a good question, really. I guess I've dabbled in it, certainly through my kind of mid twenties. Did a few kind of half marathons and a few things like that. But golf was kind of very much the focus, and sort of going out on the weekends, and very much into that kind of dynamic, I suppose. Yeah, as I said, dabbled in a few half marathons, enjoyed those, but never really put kind of much time and effort into them. It was a kind of a few runs before the event, and you'd sort of rock up and get yourself round and what have you. And then I think kind of did that for a few years, and then we were down in Tenby, down in West Wales, for those who don't know where that is, which is obviously where the Ironman event is held, down there. But they have this weekend called the Long Course Weekend, which is held kind of around the midsummer time, and it's a bit more of a fun event, but they kind of run the swim, bike, and run events kind of over the weekend, so you can do whatever you want, really. You could go and do the swim, you could go and do the run or the bike, or you can do a combination of all three. And they've got a variety of distances, from sort of you could do a 5K, you could do a marathon. So it's very kind of inclusive.
Yeah.
But again, a range of opportunity there, depending on what you kind of want to do, really. So we used to go down and just sort of, more for the social, we go down and have a few drinks and sort of just kind of soak up the atmosphere down there. And then started to get a bit of interest, a bit intrigued by kind of this world, I suppose. And it's hard not to, I think, if you're that way inclined to think, all of a sudden you think, oh, I could maybe do this. So I think it was 2019 we were down there, and I'd done the half marathon event on the Sunday a couple of times, but nothing really more than that. And then me, my brother Lloyd, as you know, and then my brother-in-law Sam kind of were like, I quite fancy a bit of this. So I think this was the 2019. So we decided then to sign up for, again, very, very impulsive, kind of not really knowing what we were walking into, really. But we're like, oh, we'll have a go at this next year. Why not? So that was it. Got home from the weekend, signed up, and and off we were, really. But of course, with that comes then the temptation, because you think, well, if I'm going to do the full long course weekend, which is in essence the full Ironman distances, but of course over the 3 days, then you start thinking, well, if I'm going to train for the three events anyway, I may as well just do it all in one day. So again, in our kind of naivety, we decided to sign up for Ironman Wales then for 2020. But of course, then we all know what happened in 2020. So the world kind of went a bit crazy. So I think around the July time of 2020, they decided to cancel Ironman for that year. Obviously, as given the state of things, and in some respects, I think none of us have been able to do any swim training, so it was probably a good call in retrospect. So for me, that kind of, I don't know, I almost kind of, maybe it was a little bit of relief there, because I think in some respects I was not even remotely close to being prepared to do an Ironman. Certainly from the swim and bike perspective, I was a complete novice, getting into those two sports. Had a bit more familiarity with the run, but the swim and the bike, looking back now, God, I'd never have been ready. So it kind of rolled forward. So we carried on, and at this point, I'd kind of got back into golf a little bit at this point. So certainly in 2021, when things kind of started to open up again, I was getting back into my golf and really enjoying that, and catching up with the boys and that sort of stuff. Sam and Lloyd carried on with the training. But again, I think given the state of kind of the way things were with the lockdowns and various restrictions, they cancelled the event again then in 2021. So at this point I was kind of like, oh, I'm not bothering with this. I'm kind of done with it, type of thing. But Sam and Lloyd carried on, and so roll forward to 2022. Of course, the event goes ahead. I go down to watch. The boys absolutely smash it. And just had the most amazing weekend. I just couldn't believe how good this day was. And I thought, so I came away from the weekend, obviously buzzing for the boys, really chuffed they'd been able to get around and finish. But I kind of felt this sense of that I'd missed out, if that makes sense, because we kind of
Yeah.
started that journey together, the three of us, and I kind of let it go. And then I felt really, really disappointed that I'd done that. So I sort of had a conversation with my partner Hannah at the time, and said, look, I really want to do this next year. So kind of she agreed, and very much that was it. So yeah, sort of got back into the bike, back into the swimming, back into the running, really trained hard then sort of through 2023, and then did Ironman Wales then in 2023. So that was my kind of
Yeah.
first experience then of the event. So
It's quite a big commitment. Obviously, you have to have talk to Hannah about it because
yeah,
it's not, it's not just like, oh, I'm going to train a few days a week. Like it's all in, you're
it is.
So how, and obviously the boys are trained for it. So you kind of, do you train together? Do you have that schedule with each other? I mean, obviously they knew what worked and what didn't. So you can kind of learn from them, but I mean, I know
And
you
then
all kind of live close.
yeah, so I think we did. I mean, thankfully Lloyd decided to do Ironman Wales again in the 2023. So I think thankful that he decided to do that because I sort of trained with him really. But again, looking back now, a couple of years on and having done a few more, I think, gosh, I didn't really know what I was doing. Certainly that year. I mean, you just I bought some kind of training plan online that I kind of followed loosely just to sort of give me a feel of sort of the amount of training that, because it gets quite complicated in terms of in terms of getting yourself ready for these disciplines, and just the distance that you've got to be prepared to cover. So, as you said, it's an awful lot of training, and there's kind of a balance between doing sort of too much, in terms of whether you do too much volume, too much intensity. So you've really got to try and strike a balance between doing, not enough and then too much. So it can be quite tricky to navigate, really. And particularly if you're kind of new into that, it's very quickly to start overtraining, and then you're not recovering and you become quite fatigued, and all of a sudden it's actually having a kind of a detrimental impact on your fitness as well. So it's a bit of a, yeah, as I say, looking back now with a bit more experience, I laugh really at kind of how naive I was really approaching the whole thing. But yeah, in some ways, if I knew how difficult it was at the time, perhaps I wouldn't have got into it in some ways as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
is,
but
I think, the one time that I have, I've done a couple of 50K runs, and
yeah,
the first time I signed up for it was totally on impulse, and I listened to like a David Goggins podcast and was like, I'm gonna do it, and why not? And you're totally right. You're like, you think, oh yeah, it can't be that hard, and then you're mid race thinking, shit, like I'm kind of broken here,
totally,
like
yeah,
I've got
totally.
another 6, 7, 10 hours of this to go. Like, how am I gonna finish?
100%. Yeah. I think you've almost got to go into it prepared for that kind of, you're going to hit a wall at some point, and you've really got to just embrace that in a strange way. I know that sounds bizarre to say, but you've
Yeah,
kind of, if you go into these things, thinking you're going to have an easy day, then you're going to be in for a rude awakening, really. But
yeah.
yeah, I always the way I try to frame it these days is just thinking that the day itself is kind of like the fun bit, if that makes sense. So sort of the output then of all of that hard work. You've trained potentially for a year to get to this point, every day, potentially twice a day, those early mornings, those late nights, those days where you really, really don't want to do the session, but you do it anyway. So I kind of feel like the day is just there to be enjoyed. That's kind of all the hard work paying off in some ways is the way I try to sort of approach it these days. And it does help in terms of reframing, the day itself then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
So
great clip on Instagram of, the national anthem going off, the sun's just rising. It's like everybody who sees that thinks that Wales is a magical place, and they don't understand that it rains the whole most of the time. And
it
that
does.
one
Yeah,
clip makes you want to travel, makes you want to come over, makes you want to do that race. Even
it
if you're
does.
not, don't live in Wales, like you see that clip from the beach and everything, and like, wow, that's such a great feeling. I mean, before we
It's
dive
yeah,
into getting it, what's that feeling being like? I mean, when you're on the sand.
oh, it's an insane atmosphere. And as I said, like the first experience I had of that was in 2022, watching Lloyd and Sam do the event, and that was it's just like spine tingling. If you're kind of if you're a Welsh person, just hearing that anthem, I think generally, but just the atmosphere down there was just. I can't really describe it, and I've said this to many people. Even if you're not really into triathlon, just go down and watch just for the day. Like you'll be blown away, I think, by how incredible the day and just the atmosphere is. But then, yeah, certainly the year I did come to do it, and I think that was the thing on Instagram I'd sent you was from the year I think I did it, and we'd had the most beautiful day. It was like 25 degrees. It was utterly bizarre, as you said. You know what our country's like for weather, but we'd had the most miserable summer, and then we just were presented with this like 25-degree glorious day on the Sunday, which in some respects was probably too warm for that, can't
Yeah.
complain. But yeah, the atmosphere on the beach was just it's just indescribable, really. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a really, really good. Yeah, so it's probably the closest I'll ever get to kind of, feeling like you're in the Principality here on a rugby international day, if that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
closest I'll
That's
probably
what it
get.
looks
So
like. Yeah.
yeah,
What for like just to clarify, 2 mile swim, 100 mile bike and a marathon, is that right?
yeah. So yeah, 2.4 mile
Roughly.
swim, then it's a 112 mile bike, and then a marathon to finish. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I suppose what makes Tenby particularly challenging, I guess, is the bike course there has about 2,500 meters of elevation change, which is pretty brutal. And then the run course has kind of about 500-600 meters of elevation change. So it's very, very hilly, which obviously makes for a far more difficult day than if you did something, maybe abroad or somewhere flat, which of course has
Yeah.
a different training requirement, and obviously it's just a different challenge altogether. So I think that's why
Yeah.
Wales kind of has that reputation of perhaps being more, one of the more kind of demanding Ironmans in, I think in the world actually it's up there in the top
Yeah.
couple. So
And there's
yeah.
that great clip of you kind of cycling or the boys cycling up the hill, right? And all the crowds are right there and they just kind of part. Like you can't really see
Oh,
what is going
honestly,
on. Like,
Mike. Yeah. So it's called sort of Heartbreak Hill. So it's basically a hill. You do it twice, thankfully, just because the nature of the bike course. And honestly, Mike, it is again the closest probably experience anybody would have to kind of like riding the Tour de France. It's the only way I can describe it. It's just lined with people all the way up, and kind of the entry that you've got to go up is barely big enough for you and your bike. It's just insane. But I mean, you kind of find that you just fly up the hill. I mean, it's quite a big hill. I've been down there done training rides, and it's quite a graft. And then you get to the day, and you just like you're whipping up there like it's nothing. So if the crowd atmosphere and the atmosphere really does kind of it does carry you up. It's
yeah.
again, yeah, it's an insane part of the course, to be fair.
So, what you've just done the race, last 2 weekends ago? Um, is this the first race you've done since the accident?
I guess technically not. Did Ironman Wales in 2023 and loved the experience. I was kind of very much a one and done guy. I thought I'll just do one, I'll be happy, and I'll put it all to bed, go back to my golf, and but shock horror that wasn't the case. So
Get the tattoo.
got the tattoo. Oh, absolutely. Again, I was adamant the whole build. I'm not going to get the tattoo. I'm not going to do it. And as soon as I finished, I was like, right, put me in. I'm going to get it done. So yeah, and I went for the classic, just
Red
red
M.
red stamp on the calf. Yeah, just yeah, I mean,
Classic.
what you say, I look at it now and think, but yeah, it is what it is, isn't it? So, yeah, no,
Love it.
so that all went to plan, and then me again, Lloyd and Sam, so this is my brother and brother-in-law, were kind of like, there was a little bit of discussion about potentially doing the Barcelona race, which is in the
Uh,
October. So this would have been October last year. So again, I managed to persuade Hannah, I think maybe is probably the wrong word, to allow me to do that one, or to give me her blessing. Yeah, that was a tough one. But anyway, we kind of got to a point where we decided to enter the race. Family all booked a big holiday, so we thought we'll go, can have a week's holiday and then fit the event
uh,
in and have a few days then just to kind of chill out. So yeah, so start of last year then. So I was kind of in the swing of sort of just the winter training really. I was out on a run on a Wednesday night, Wednesday 24th of January, and I got hit by a car from the left hand side whilst running. Which yeah is obviously not good. And unfortunately, then I was left with a compound fracture to my left leg, which effectively is an open fracture. So the
uh-huh.
left tibia and the fibula bones were broken in half, and decided to pop out of the skin as well. So yeah, so that was pretty awful. As you can imagine, and it was kind of the nature of the accident, the way I fell. I kind of caught a glimpse of my leg, kind of on the way to the floor, and I could see like it was pointing off to the left, kind of from the
Oof.
shin area. So I thought, well, that isn't good. So it was kind of one of those where I was like, this is a shocker.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of threw the whole year up into a bit of turmoil, really. Well, my life, to be quite honest, it wasn't just event at that point. You kind of like you don't
Yeah.
really know what sort of state you're going to have your leg in really post, post recovery. So yeah, that was that. Had a week in hospital off the back of that accident. Had to have two surgeries. And I now have a metal rod kind of down the front of my shin bone, which is in permanently, and some screws to kind of hold that in place. Which is pretty clever because kind of like it acts as the weight bearing sort of function for your leg for a period until obviously your bone heals, and then it just sort
Mm.
of sits in the shin bone kind of obsolete really for the rest of time, which
It's mad.
is mad, isn't it? Yeah. So but yeah, so that was particularly difficult. I guess obviously just I suppose the recovery process for an injury like that is pretty hideous.
Yeah.
And I don't one of those again. If someone told me how bad that would have been, I don't think I'd have believed them.
Mm.
It's I'd always been maybe I had a strange interest in kind of people who'd had like shocking injuries and kind of, come back. I was kind of fascinated by the comeback story, if you like. I know that sounds a bit cringe,
Yeah.
but I was always really fascinated by people who've kind of been through awful injuries and come back and kind of achieve something. But I didn't appreciate how difficult it would be just to go through something like that. It was
Yeah. Well, not
yeah,
just
so
physically, right? Mentally, you're stuck in a hospital
yeah,
bed for a week, not figuring out, trying to think if I'm ever going to run again or walk or play golf.
yeah, yeah. Well, that was it, Mike. Yeah, so I had to have had something called compartment syndrome. So basically, without boring you, yeah, your leg has kind of like various compartments within it.
Uh,
So what happens when you get an injury like that is you get like a buildup of pressure in these compartments. So again, if that's left untreated, that can cause sort of excruciating pain and can potentially lead to having, amputation, etc., which is quite serious, obviously. So
yeah.
they have to make a big incision, sort of just from below the knee, kind of all the way down to the ankle, along kind of my calves. I've got like pretty wicked scar there now. But so that was pretty nasty, just in terms of just the stitching and the
Yeah.
wounds and things like the wound management that comes with stuff like that, really. But yeah, you're laying there just thinking, I don't know. And again, I've got to come at this from the perspective of I'm not a professional athlete. I'm just somebody who
Right.
enjoys doing this for fun. But when you are quite an active person, whether that's golf, kind of the triathlon type stuff,
Yeah.
there's a lot of unknown at that period in time. Just in terms of what functionality you're going to get back with your leg. Yeah, it's really difficult to know, I think.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too that comes to mind is like, yeah, we're not professional athletes. We want to play golf as much as we can to a high level. We want to, do endurance races to a high
Yeah,
level. It definitely feels like a purpose to us though,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
we have our identity in golf or in, endurance athletics or what, which, maybe that's good, maybe that isn't. But yeah, I can't imagine lying there in bed thinking, worst case, what am I going to do now? Like when I come home from work, what am I going to do in the night and focus on and have like a goal or a passion for something?
100%. Yeah, and it's, that is kind of the mental side, I guess, when you're dealing with an injury like that is, and again, I know, the doctors and kind of the professionals are fantastic in terms of, yeah, oh, you'll be back running in 6 months and all that type of stuff, but you don't know how much of that is just being said to keep your spirits up, and all these
Yeah.
things start to go through your mind, and you think, well, what level am I going to, am I just going to be able to jog 20 minutes up the street, or am I actually going to get to be able to run maybe like a half marathon at a and again, some of this stuff will seem trivial to some people, but I think if it's something that you individually, enjoy doing, and it gives you that sense of purpose, as you've said, I think
Yeah.
it's really important, even if it's perhaps not perceived as important to someone else. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, so it was kind of, yeah, as I said, a week in hospital, and it was kind of home, and yeah, I mean, I was on crutches for 12 weeks. So obviously your independence is pretty
Yeah.
much gone at that point. So I mean, I was incredibly thankful to Hannah and my parents. We're sort of rallying around, well, all my family and friends really, but just bringing me food and just driving me around, doing my shopping and all that type of, all the basic things that you
Yeah.
just you take for granted. I need milk. You think, oh shit, I can't. I've got to ring somebody to go and get milk for me. It's just silly things like that, and that's the
Uh,
stuff I think which is quite hard. I think, particularly if you're just used to having your own independence. Um, yeah, and then I guess from there then, so I was fortunate that I'd been Hannah works in the hospital as a nurse. So I think one of the consultants that she's friendly with there had recommended a local physio to us.
mm,
So I think a lady who'd kind of worked with, I think, orthopedic patients in the past, and I think had worked kind of with sort of like quite high level athletes. So I think had a background in working with, people from kind of, the
Yeah.
endurance world. So I thought, well, I'm going to go and sort of, go and see her. So kind of started on the recovery process a few weeks after leaving hospital. And I think was in physio on a weekly basis then for probably 6 to 9 months.
Mm.
Was in the gym or doing something probably well, I say in the gym, but just doing my kind of physio exercises at home, just
Yeah.
trying to get ankle mobility back, with a towel. It was as basic as that at the beginning. Talking really kind of small stuff. But I just thought to myself, I can just do something small every day, that kind of incremental improvement, that incremental kind of improvement that you see on a day to day,
Yeah.
it'll start to build into something for me, more meaningful. And that's really the way you've got to try and kind of tackle injuries like that. Because I think, going
Yeah.
back from the state I was in to running again just seemed inconceivable at that point in time. So you've always got to
Mm.
try and break it down into small. I'm going to just get myself walking again and then think about running after that. So,
Yeah, you
but
start
yes,
stacking your days, right? Just like
you do.
stack days and, and then it'll eventually get to it. But you're right. If you start looking at climbing a mountain after you've just been hit by a car, it's the last thing that's going to happen.
Honestly, Mike, and like I just didn't appreciate how awful that injury. Like I've seen, I've followed football and stuff for years, and you've seen, players have that type of injury, and it's a bad one. But to
Yeah.
actually kind of live the recovery process is like, I had to learn to walk again. Like literally, I spent days in the physio where I am like with practicing me trying to walk, down the corridor, and you think like I'm a grown man. But again, like walking is something that who thinks about walking is something you
Yeah.
learn subconsciously as a child, and you just give no thought to until all of a sudden you're like, well, what's the technique for walking? I mean, who on earth would even give that a thought unless you've got to? So stuff like that is really, really quite humbling in a way.
Mm. How soon did you think I'm going to do this race then, or the next race? I mean, and then obviously had the boys talked about Barcelona? Was the Barcelona thing already talked about before you had your crash?
Yeah, so that was
Oh,
all.
okay.
We were all booked and paid. I was all in, booked, paid for. So that was all.
Yeah.
That was all in motion. So I mean, stupidly again, I look back in retrospect and I think I had no business even bringing it up in at this stage of it. But I sort of said to my physio on the day one, look, I'm signed up for Ironman Barcelona in October, and I think this would have been the March. I think it
Yeah.
probably. I said, what do you think? And I think she probably thought, what are you on about? But again, I just wanted something I just wanted something to grip onto, some kind of like light of sight, if that makes sense. So I think she
Yeah.
probably just said, I think she was quite diplomatic in terms of saying, oh, look, I think it's a little bit too early to call, but let's just see how you get on and see how we get to where we get to in the summer, and we'll kind of make a call on it really.
Mm.
So again, the event was in and paid for, so I was very much of the view, well, if I can't get there, then I can't get there. I'll go and have the holiday. But I thought it gives me something to kind of work towards, and it might actually help with the recovery in terms of
Mm.
expediting that process. So really, it was a bit of a in the background, and I kind of chipped away at it. Obviously, the swimming and the biking was kind of less of an issue, just in terms of I could get back in the pool quite quickly, and then the
Yeah.
cycling as well. I could do a bit on the indoor trainer at home, and I got to a point where I could get my confidence to go back out on the road and things like that. So that was relatively, I say, straightforward, less complicated. But the running was obviously the big issue. So I kind of got to a point in around, I think it was probably around August, September, where I thought I could possibly do this. But the big issue we had was around being able to make the cut off, because I was going to have to walk the marathon. And even at a sort of a brisk walking pace, you're still looking at over 6 hours to walk a full marathon. And just kind of, I think there's a 16-hour cutoff for Ironman Barcelona. So it just was very, very tight in terms of being able to actually make that. So it got to a point where I could do a tiny, tiny bit of running at this point. I mean, literally, I think I'd maybe got up to a kilometer, without stopping, which,
Mm.
yeah, it shows you kind of, where I was at, having run a marathon, the year before. But we got to a point where I could run 200 meters and then walk the next 800 meters of every kilometer.
Yeah.
And then I did a few practice runs and kind of paced that I could get around a 6 hour, just under 6 hour marathon pace by taking that approach. And that would probably be enough to get me under the 16-hour cutoff. So that was kind of the way I tackled the day, or I was planning on tackling the day. So yeah, event rolled around then in the October. So we kind of went out as planned. So I thought I'm going to have a go at the event and just see how I get on. Did the swim, it was all okay, bike was fine, and of course the run. So I managed to get round in just over 14 hours 15,
Oh, wow.
which I think probably on reflection is probably the greatest thing I'll ever do physically, or whatever I ever go on to do again in terms of whether I could run a sub 3 marathon as an example. I don't think I'll ever do anything as impressive physically as that. Just being able to get myself from the state that I was in the January to actually finish in a full Ironman, I don't think is something I can ever top, really, to be quite frank.
Yeah. In 8 months.
In 8 months, yeah. So there was probably a bit of stubbornness there, I think, in that, and it probably wouldn't have been something I'd have looked to have gone and done. But I think because it was booked and because we were going on the holiday, I just thought, well, why not
Yeah.
if I can? And yeah, so that was awesome. I think yeah, I kind of very much went there just to finish. There was no expectations in terms of times other than just cross the line before the cut off
Yeah.
and just get it done really. So yeah, so last year was pretty wild really.
What do you learn from it? What are your biggest takeaways from that, that whole 8 month process from learning to walk to I think I can do this to hang on a second, let me just run 200 meters and walk 8. Like there's so many ways that the lessons that you learn transition into life. I'm interested to hear what your biggest takeaways were
Totally.
from it.
Yeah, it's a good question, and something I've given some thought to. I think over the last, because again, it's a sort of experience that is quite life changing in a way, if that makes sense. Like it's the sort of thing that you go through, and it does change you. I think in some bizarre way. So I think I've learned that I'm pretty determined when I put my mind to things. I think that's an attribute that I would have confidence to say that I hold in abundance. I think. I think that, the classic kind of like the resilience type, determination, those sorts of characteristics, I think you have to have them to get through. Because
Hmm.
it'd be very easy for me just to have gone, oh, well, okay, I'm not going to bother doing this stuff again. And I think a lot of people would have just gone, oh, well, that's my kind of, running career, but you
Yeah.
know what I'm trying to say, that's kind of my running done.
Yeah.
Because I think it's the nature of that type of injury is you just think, oh well, that's me done. I think you can very much slip into, and don't get me wrong, I had those days at the beginning when I very much was in, a victim mentality of, oh well, why did this
Yeah.
happen to me? Yeah, I had plenty of those days at the beginning certainly, and you kind of got to get to a point where you say you can dwell and you can whine about this, but it has happened, and none of that is going to sit in there moping and complaining is not going to change anything fundamentally. So
Mm.
the only option you've got is just to try and make the best of it in some ways. And I know that sounds really corny, but like it is. So I thought,
Yeah.
well, I'll just do what I can every day to just try and get myself back to some sort of level. So I think it probably tested me mentally in a way that I perhaps have never been tested before. I think, as I say, it did. I slipped into that kind of victim mentality, as I said, and I think it's quite easy just to sit there and
Mm.
feel like the worst thing in the world has happened to you. But again, I think people are going through difficult things every day, and you've got to just try and just kind of persevere forward, really. So yeah, so I think those things are. I think those sorts of characteristics, I think, have certainly given me confidence in terms of not just this type of stuff, but in terms of my life going forward. I feel kind of,
Yeah.
quite prepared to handle touch wood most things now. And I think, those sorts of characteristics, I think, are applicable and kind of transferable into all walks of life, aren't they? Career, family, we're all going to have some pretty rough stuff happen to us down the line, whether that's,
Hmm.
losing parents and family and things like that. So I think in some ways, as being as prepared as you can for that type of stuff, I think is all you can do, really, isn't it? So
Yeah. And
yeah, so
when you're doing the races, like you don't have headphones in, right? You're just
no,
raw, and you're doing this. You're training with no headphones as well. You're just straight into, or are you training with headphones?
I mean, I'll tend to run with. I'll put some music in for long runs just
Yeah.
because. Yeah, but I think obviously I swim and I don't, and the bike,
Yeah.
I've never been one for putting music on the bike. Again, I know for some people who will perhaps have one, but I like to have kind of more awareness,
As a safety
and
thing too.
there is, and I mean, given, I would probably say the bike was where I was more nervous in terms of the car kind of dynamic, because
Hmm.
although I got hit by a car running, I mean, you're far more likely to get hit by a car or cycling. I mean, that's when people found out about my leg, most people just couldn't believe that
Yeah.
it was running. They just assumed it was cycling because obviously there's just an inherent danger that comes with cycling out on the roads. So I was certainly far more aware than I'd been before, and I think
Yeah.
that's probably something I'll have to manage, kind of going, because it's just a little bit of scar tissue there, isn't there, from
Yeah.
kind of mentally from a bad experience. But I was kind of again not determined not to let that stop me from living my life. I thought I could easily
Right.
just avoid ever going cycling again. But I thought, well, I would be disappointed if I let that just
Yeah.
kind of, I'm sitting there thinking, oh, so in some ways I probably forced myself back out on the bike before I was ready, really looking back. But again,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and
sometimes you just gotta.
also people, the scenery you're cycling around in South Wales in the mountains does it's pretty hard to beat, when
It's
it's
beautiful,
when
yeah.
the sun's shining anyway, it's
It is
mega.
beautiful, yeah. It is really nice. So no, we are really lucky in that respect. So yeah, no, it was a year of a lot of really good kind of lessons I think to take away from a pretty crappy thing. I think
Yeah. I have a
the way to
note on
describe it.
my fridge and it just says do hard things.
Yeah,
And no matter what, if that's, doing an Ironman, doing a marathon, doing like everybody has their own version of what's hard for them, right? There's people
yeah,
that listening that might, they never run a mile in their life or whatever. A lot of people attribute that to physical, but there's a lot of things that, you know,
absolutely.
becoming a doctor or, doing your master's degree. I mean, whatever it is, there's so many ways to do it. But by doing it, I think we're a lot capable of what we think we are. And I think, especially the one thing I noticed about being out here compared to being home is that there's a mentality out here. And I think I only recognize it that's similar. It's similar in gym culture and fitness back home. That feeling of, come on, let's do it. You can do it. Like, what do you need? That mentality is in every industry out here, whereas back home it's only in the gym sort of scene and only in
That's
your
interesting.
like fitness versus, because how many times have we met people, and I think naturally growing up we're generally pretty negative in the UK, right? I think
I
we're
would say so.
generally,
Yeah,
and the only place that I have noticed that that's not kind of there is in the gym, is, going to the gym with the boys or jumping on a bike, like, or on the golf course as well, like which is weird that it's only in that, because you'd think that that would transfer into every, part of your life. But that's the one big difference I noticed straight away of, being out here and trying to run a business or trying to work for yourself or trying to do a race. Like everyone's behind you. And the only feeling I've had that similarly is back home when someone, when you're trying to go for, you're trying to max a deadlift or you're trying to PR something with it, like, but it's not in any other industry, which is weird. Like, because you'd
it is
think that,
strange, isn't it?
it's just kind of like nobody would have batted an eyelid if you, after your crash, said, I think that's my sign, I'm done.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Which is
Oh,
kind of like, part of us obviously wants to do better and wants to, like I said, you like the comeback story and never think that you're going to have to do it yourself, but you go and do it. You're like, fucking hell, this is really hard to do. But, you have like that goal that you still kept that date. You still planned on going to Barcelona, and then it helps when the boys are, Sam and Lloyd are training for it and getting into it. You get a great support system. Um, what is going through your head on race day? What's the self talk like when you're in the pain cave? Because it's a pretty dark place when you're in the pain cave and
it
you've got
is.
no
Yeah,
music and all you got is your own thoughts,
good
especially in a
question.
foreign country.
Yeah, that was a funny day because that one was there was a genuine concern as to whether physically I could get round. Like I think the other two that I'd done, I knew physically I was capable. I
Yeah.
was fit, prepared. I mean, barring kind of any sort of mechanicals on the bike or any sort of catastrophes in the swim, if getting elbowed or something outside of your control, I
Mm.
generally knew I was fine. But Barcelona, I was genuinely like, I don't know if I'm capable of this. So I think the swim again, I was relatively unconcerned with the swim. I just thought I've done the distance, it's not going to issue the leg. The bike, it's quite a flat course in Barcelona. So again, I was kind of like, I can just cruise around at a comfortable pace. So that was okay.
Was there a lot hot? Was the heat an issue in Barcelona or not too
It
hot in
wasn't it wasn't
October?
too bad. We were kind of fairly lucky, had a kind of overcasty day. I would probably say the course was probably wasn't the most it was scenic, but it was a little bit flat and a bit boring, I
Yeah.
think. It was probably,
Yeah.
that would be my observations. I think certainly by the last kind of quarter, I was a bit fed up at that point. But I think, when you've been on a bike for
Yeah.
five
Yeah. Yeah.
hours, you're just looking forward to getting off. But the run, I mean, or the walk, whatever you want to call it, was hard because that is where you're out there a long time. A lot of people are running. You're just walking. You're getting people in the crowd going, come on, Gary, you can do it. Run, run." And I'm like, I can't, type of thing. But you're trying to
Yeah.
you're trying to be positive, but of course I had a bit of a game plan for the way I was going to do, take the day on really. But the problem I had then, the bit I found the most difficult, because it's like a lapped course, so you do like a 14K basically 3 times, but they're quite cruel really the way they do the lap, so that you literally walk down past the finish line and have to loop back out. So you have to do that a couple of times, and of course you'll have a
Yeah.
few people who literally go off to finish, and you're like, oh, I've got to go again.
Yeah.
And of course by this point, we're into, I think 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and it's dark. It's not that most people have finished at this point.
Hmm.
The crowds are thinning. It's getting tough, and I think I hit a big wall around 23, 24 kilometers. I mean, I was mentally in a really dark
Yeah.
place. I just thought this is just never going to end, the type of thing.
What's a marathon in kilometers?
42.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
sorry, probably around
almost halfway. Yeah.
probably just over the halfway mark. I hit a big
Yeah.
wall because again, I knew I had a couple of hours still out there, and I was just mentally finding it tough at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily, family had kind of made their way out to part of the course that they knew I was coming to, and they were all there giving it some beans, and that genuinely I can't even describe, gave me the biggest lift that I probably ever experienced, I think, in a race. Just because I think I needed it so much. I just needed to see someone, and they were just cheering, they were running, kind of, just patting me and just giving me that kind of support, and it just gave me a huge boost. And then I sort of finished the second lap off, and then I was kind of very much into, right, you're on the last lap type mentality now. And from then you're like, I'm gonna do this. So yeah, it's difficult. And then this year, then having sort of did Wales again this year. The second half of the marathon is just really difficult on an Ironman. There's just no, however well prepared you are, I think it just is
Yeah.
hard at that point. And that's kind of where you've really got to dig in and say, how much do you kind of want it? That's have you got a tight, how much are you prepared to just, it's going to hurt. So you can either just stop and walk, or you just keep
Yeah.
persevering. And really, it's just that's where that comes into play. You've just got to stick at it. You really have. And your body's, my legs were screaming at me to stop, and it's just easy to take a walk. And I just think, I'll just have it, I've got plenty of time in the bank. I'm just going to walk. And that's just where you've got to just hold yourself to account in some ways and say, no, come on, you're going to dig this out
Yeah.
for the next hour and a half, and then it's done. Think of how you'll feel afterwards, and all that type of self-talk is. I always, the how you're going to feel after is the one I often, because I just think it's another hour, it's going to be brutal, but just think how happy you'll be after. And that for me is just a bit, it gets me through often. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
It is a class feeling when you finish anything like that, whether it's
yeah,
someone that, done a marathon and you hit the wall at mile 16 or 17, like most people who've done their first
totally.
marathon, and you think, I got 8, 9 miles to go. How am I going to do this? But that feeling of finishing across the finish line and that boost of energy you get when you're running down the finish line too.
It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's just a sense of pride, I think you get in yourself. I think I always think, I feel pleased with myself, proud of myself after, for persevering. I think that's what those events do.
Mm.
I think they're things that you can look at and go, God, look what I did there. I think you can feel pretty pleased with yourself. And I think sometimes in life we don't often do things that actually we look and go, God, I was really proud of myself for doing that. And I think that's just such a positive reinforcement in terms of in terms of every aspect of your life, isn't it? If you know
Yeah.
you can do difficult things and push yourself through a barrier like that, you can apply it to anything. You can be unstoppable, can't you? In
Yeah.
theory.
Yeah.
Do you know
Well,
what I mean?
yeah, and that's the thing. I think we don't, we get comfortable, don't we? We get comfortable
Yeah,
doing, the things that we're doing. We get comfortable jumping in the car and driving somewhere, versus walking or riding a bike or, whatever it is. Like, I think, and in it, whether it's, fitness or in life, I think we definitely, we have our goals to get to where we want to be. And then once we get there, we just kind of plateau a little bit. And, yeah, it's good to kind of enjoy where you're at. But I think there's people out there, and I think we're similar in this, that we're always kind of, there's got to be, not always wanting more, but we have to work towards something to feel like we're living life, if that makes sense.
definitely. Yeah,
Right?
that's something I've realized about myself over life. I'm quite a goals orientated person, so for me, I find it's important for me to have things to kind of to work towards. That's where I
Hmm.
get the best out of myself. I quite like sort of structure and things. I like something to aim at. I find if I don't have those things, and again, this doesn't have to be sport related. This could be
Yeah, it could be
career. This
anything.
could be
Hmm.
family. It could be anything. But I think having those goals and those things that keep you kind of accountable and things to work towards. Um, I think you just get more out of yourself. I just think sometimes otherwise it's just very easy to coast along and I could become a little bit aimless, I think.
Yeah.
So I think and again, look, this isn't, some people are comfortable, they're happy, they're content, and I've got no issue with that. But I think,
Mm.
yeah, I personally just, I want to try and get the best out of myself in every aspect, really,
Yeah.
and just see where that takes me, really. But yeah.
What was the time goal for this year then for a Tembe?
So this year was
It was a pretty brutal weekend, wasn't it?
it was a pretty brutal weekend. Yeah, it's a bit of a funny one again, Mike, because like in terms of like the running, obviously, like I wasn't really running properly until I would say the start of this year.
Hmm.
So I did a half marathon back in February, again, like in kind of like 1 hour 50 something, which I was super pleased with, but that's kind of well off my fastest time. But
Yeah.
I was kind of still in the realms of not really knowing how I was going to be able to run train. I knew I could run, but could I do a kind of proper marathon prep, if you like?
Yeah.
I didn't know at that point. So I kind of had sub 12 hours in my mind as a bit of a goal, but I thought I'm not going to be too kind of hard on myself. If the running perhaps doesn't come back, and again, my
Mm.
physio said, look, let's just see how the running goes. But the
Yeah.
fact that you can even just run a proportion of the run would be an achievement. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so swim and biking were good, and the biking has definitely come on. So I put more kind of work on the bike sort of through early part of the year, sort of to get kind of a bit stronger on the bike section of the course. But really, kind of the running has surprised me. I sort of found that I was getting a bit quicker. I was able to do kind of a good 3 to 4 runs a week, and I wasn't having any. So the big issue I find with the leg, Mike, isn't so much obviously the bone has healed now, and thankfully that's
Mm.
all kind of recovered. But it's an awful lot of kind of muscle and tendon kind of damage around, particularly around the calf area.
Yeah.
So what I found is I get a lot of kind of discomfort and soreness around the calf muscle if I do too much running. So that's kind of been the limiting factor, as opposed to the bone, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but thankfully, yeah, the strength and kind of endurance in the leg has come back through the summer. So I've thankfully been able to train pretty freely all year, which has been good.
Mm.
So definitely went into the weekend thinking 12 hours was kind of on the cards. But yeah, so I ended up with 12 hours 6 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's not far off. But yeah, the swim was just a little bit slower than I think. It was very choppy, a lot of jelly. You would notice the cut on my head here was actually a jellyfish sting. So
Oh, no way.
yeah, I got stung in the face with a jellyfish, so that was nice. So it's
To
actually
start the day.
so it was about halfway through the swim, but like I had a few nips on the wrists and feet and things, and then got done on the
Is
forehead,
that
which was
is
lovely.
that common in Tembe?
The jellyfish, yes.
Yeah.
I've not heard of people being stung
Okay.
before in my experience. Because normally when I've been down, you have the kind of the barrel jellyfish, which are just more,
Okay.
it's just the size of them as opposed to anything else. But this year there seem to be a lot smaller ones, just around. So I don't quite know why that is.
Yeah.
And somebody had helpfully posted on social media like a picture of like a man of war washed up on the shoreline in Pembrokeshire. So
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, and they're pretty dangerous. So it's a bit like, oh, that's not great.
Great. Thanks. Yeah.
But yeah, but talking to people after that, I think a lot of people got stung. I just happened to get one kind of on the forehead, so that was kind of it. But
Great.
so
Great way to start the day.
yeah, so the swim was pretty brutal. So I probably came out the swim maybe 8 minutes down on kind of where I was hoping to be.
Mm.
The bike course was windy, which I think it was a northerly wind, which just made the course a bit more difficult than it ordinarily
Yeah.
would have been. So again, I was probably 10 or 15 minutes down on the bike as to where I'd like to have been. And the run pretty much when I managed to creep under 4 hours for the marathon, which I was over the moon with really for that
Yeah.
course as well. So it totaled up to 12 hours 6. So I think on reflection, I was pretty pleased with the performance. And I actually took half an hour off my time from the previous time I did it
Yeah.
in 2023. So I think looking at it from that perspective, it's a
Yeah.
positive, isn't it? I think. And given, as I said, given where I was last year, to be
Yeah.
able to do that in 12 hours 6 is just is inconceivable, to be quite honest. So
It's mad, isn't
yeah,
it? You
it's
look
mad.
back,
Yeah.
like, and we can do the things that we, put our minds to. What's next? What are we done? Are we like gonna push into
That's
something? Are you gonna stick to a bike or an ultra marathon or what? Like, what's next?
So I think for the moment I'm probably done with the full distance Ironmans. I think I've done them 3 years running now, and I think it's probably just
Yeah.
a good time to have a bit of a because they are very very consuming. They do take up every kind of ounce
Hmm.
of your spare time really outside of work, and I think just to be fair on family and I think it'd be right to just have a
Yeah.
bit of get back to a bit of normal. But I think I'll do maybe like a half Ironman distance next year. I think there's an event in Swansea in around July time, so I think I'll probably
Mm.
enter that and maybe do maybe a few other sort of shorter events. Because again, I'll need something I think to kind of give me. And not
Yeah.
only that, I'm enjoying the sport still. I want to keep going with it. I want to see if I can keep improving. So I think there are other goals to potentially take on. So it'd be nice just to see where I can take it really. Within reason, obviously balancing around kind of life
Yeah.
commitments. But yeah, I think done with the full distances for now, for sure. I think just I would never say never, but I think I'm have a little break from those. I think just to give the body an
Yeah.
opportunity to recover.
Do most people kind of try to do one every year, or do they try to take? I mean, it's a lot of consistent training. It
It
makes
is.
a lot of sense. Like, one every other year would make sense to me, but I've never done one, so I wouldn't know.
I think it depends. I mean, we were talking to a guy down Tenby on the weekend gone. And I think Lloyd swims with him fairly regularly. He's done something like that was his 30th Ironman. So he's done 30 full ones, and he's done something like the same in half distance ones as well. And I think he's sort of in his early 60s. I mean, he looks great, but you think, gosh, that
Yeah.
is huge commitment, isn't it? Even if you did one, two a year, for example, that's 15 years. You've been doing two consistently a year. So
Yeah.
just staggering, really. But I think other people are a bit more, maybe they'll do one and have a break and then they'll come back to it. I think it really depends on kind of like where you're at in life in terms
Hmm.
of whether you've got like small children or like career. I think if you're perhaps a bit older, children are grown up,
Yeah.
you can probably put more time into it. I think it depends, but I think thankfully, I think Lloyd and Sam have decided they're not doing a full next year because I think often if they decide to do a full, it can often
Yeah.
tempt me into wanting to. But I think we're all in agreement we're going to have a break from the fulls next year, which I think is good. So I think
Yeah.
hopefully there won't be any temptation to want to do it again. So
What
for
are
now,
they? Are they at a different level? Are they at a different
yeah,
level to what you're chasing? I mean, they're younger than both of us, so
yeah,
that
which
makes
is an
sense.
important
But
point. We should
very
say they are
important.
giving up 6 years, Mike, it's a lot. So it's
Yeah.
important to get that. Yeah, no, the boys have really excelled. So they both actually qualified for the half Ironman World Championships in Marbella this
Oh
November,
wow.
which is wicked. And then Lloyd has qualified for the half Ironman World Championships in Nice for next year, then in
Oh
September.
wow.
So they both fly in, to be fair. So we're all going out to Marbella now in November to watch. So that'll be pretty cool. But yeah, so the boys
Class.
are really doing well, and again, I think they're both enjoying it. Sam's just had a baby, so I think life may look slightly different for him, but I think no doubt he'll be able to navigate it. But no, I'm very much chasing those bit at the moment, I think, and probably will be for the foreseeable, I think.
Yeah,
But
that's
no, it's
fine.
good. It's all right, isn't it? Gives you something to kind of to aim towards, isn't it? So
Yeah, it's. I mean, my race is usually in March every year, and I don't. That's the only one I've done. I don't do any other racing for the rest of the year. I kind of start training around now, October, November. Haven't decided if I'm going to do it next year yet, but because there's a bike element to it as well. The weekend is mainly a bike. It's a 100-mile bike
okay,
race on the Saturday, but then the run is on the Friday. Some people do the 50K and then they ride the 100 miles the next day. Some people do like a 50K and a 50-mile bike ride. Some people just do the run or just do the bike. So I don't have a bike to do it, and it's on gravel, so it's um,
okay, you do the gravel. So
up and down gravel roads. I haven't decided yet. I need to figure out if I'm gonna run or not. But yeah, and the good
have you
thing is
done?
like it's not in golf season. It's kind of like same weather back home as it is sort of our winter golf season is the same here.
I'm with you.
So
Okay. Have
it's
you
not missing anything.
have you been doing much running of late, or do you just
No,
tend to focus? No, you
I
tend to just build for.
after race day in March, I don't usually don't run for the rest of the year until I
Yeah,
start training again. Because then I just start playing golf, and I
of
just
course.
think,
Yeah,
and I'll get back. I'm sure I'll get back into it just to do, a few miles every day just to keep running. But
yeah. It's
I
hard to
don't
do it
like
all, though,
running
isn't
in the
it?
heat. Yeah, and it gets hot out here, and I hate running in the heat out here.
Yeah,
It's unbearable to me. But I'd rather run when it's 3 degrees outside versus being
100%.
35 degrees, right?
Oh, yeah,
But
it's just energy sapping, isn't it? Running in the heat, it just takes
yeah,
it out of you. So, and I think it's difficult as well if you're trying to play golf to a good level like yourself, and
yeah,
obviously fitting that in around career and life. Like you need to be putting your time into that. So it's hard to do it all, isn't it? So sometimes you've just got to
yeah.
pick your
Yeah.
vice, haven't you, and focus on that really. But yeah. So
How's a golf game?
I wouldn't know. I actually haven't swung a club for 2 years.
You haven't swung a club for 2 years,
No, because
really?
I had a No, I had a game in September 2 years ago, and then obviously because I did my
Yeah.
leg then in the January, I kind of like didn't even think about it last year. But I have been itching for a game now, and obviously watching the golf on the weekend, I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm chomping
Buzzing.
at the bit for a game. So I'm gonna try and sort of round a few of the boys up maybe and have a couple of games over the next few weeks if
Yeah.
we get a decent bit of weather. But and I'm kind of waiting for the. I just don't know what my game will be like. I think that's what's putting me off because it's 2 years is a long time. So
Yeah. And yeah, timing's gonna go, and also with your
yeah,
leg, am I gonna put transfer weight onto my left leg when I'm rotating and all the
it's
things?
a totally different move, isn't it? Because a lot of
Yeah,
the recovery rehab work I've done has been focused on like straight line type stuff. So it's
yeah,
been
you're twisting into your left foot now.
yeah, I've done a little bit of work on that, but that's not been the goal or the focus. So I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
maybe just test that out at the driving range. Maybe just chip a few wedges and just kind of build up to hitting full. With my
yeah.
with my swing as well. I'm gonna have to maybe tailor that a little bit. I'm not sure that's going to be suitable with the knee, is it? But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Well, class. Finish with some advice for anybody going forward, thinking about. I mean, thinking. I've thought about it a lot. Do I want to do this? I've got friends that have done it over here as well. They're a lot flatter generally over here than I think they are back home. Um, but yeah, what would you say? What would your
What?
advice be
What in,
going
in
into?
anything or in any
I
regard
mean,
or just sort of
like going into an Ironman. What would your advice be?
um.
Because
Well, I think
I'm scared of swimming. Like I'm not a good
right,
swimmer.
okay. So right, so for anyone thinking about doing one, do one because it is. If again, this is not me saying that everyone needs to go, but I think if you've got that kind of thing
Hmm.
thinking in your mind, just go for it, do it, because you won't regret it. The swim, I get why people are concerned about the swim. I genuinely do because I think there's just that open water nature, and
Hmm.
I think that does terrify people. It did terrify me, but you got to think the swim's like 10% of the day. It's the shortest bit, and
Yeah.
you can just get yourself to a level you can get around. So I wouldn't what I always say to people is don't be put off by the swim. If you feel like that's something you can have some coaching, you can work your way up.
Hmm.
You're not just going to go and throw yourself in the middle of the ocean and do 2 miles. Like you're not going to you're going to build up to that. So don't let that put you off. But absolutely, yeah, thinking of doing one, just do it. Like go for it. Why not? Like you'd be
Yeah.
surprised. Like you'd be surprised how the things you could do. If you put your mind to it. That'll be my advice. Just take risks and
Yeah.
then just have a go at things. Push yourself. Just see what you can get out of yourself. I think is my advice to anybody. Just push yourself out your comfort zone. Like me
Yeah.
doing this. I mean, I never done anything like this before, but I thought, well, why not? And you know,
Yeah.
that would be my
Mental.
advice. Just have a go.
All right. I'm gonna have to do it at some point. I'm 35, so I'll do it. I'll make the commitment to do one before I turn 40. How about that?
There we go, mate. I love it. And it's got to be
Done.
Ironman Wales, obviously, being a Welshman.
Oh, fuck. I mean,
Mate, if you're going to do it,
that's what would be hard. Be training over here to come home in miserable weather.
that would be your big, yeah, and just finding the hills as well. That would be the
Yeah,
train off
finding
would
the
be the issue.
hills.
But maybe do a flat one
Yeah,
then, Mike. Yeah, maybe like
we'll see.
Florida or something. I don't know, something like that.
Be easy. It'd be super.
Yeah, be fine.
Mate. So proud. It's fucking awesome to listen to you talk about it. To see, obviously, we got the news. Your brother, I think, put a group in, and when you got hit by a car, and they're like, oh fuck, like, we all, we're all thinking, what's going to happen? Is he all right? Has he got head injuries? Like, you never know. And then 8 months later, or 9 months later to do, an Ironman in Barcelona, and then to do another one this year. It's class. It's like,
Thanks, bud. Oh, I appreciate it.
I can't imagine how awesome it felt to stand on that podium in Barcelona, and just like, and then to do it again, a couple of weeks ago with all with all the boys around, I guess, with everyone there. Yeah, it's one of the great feelings, and I hope that people listening get a chance to feel something close to that in whatever it is that they do, because it can't, like I said, you can't describe it.
No, you can't. And I think it's not just, and again, it's whatever you decide to take on. It doesn't have to be an Ironman, but I think, when you've put that amount of work and input into something, I think just that sense of achievement you get,
Mm-hmm.
I think is, as I said, there's a real proudness that comes with that. I think that you can't fake and you have to earn. And I think, I would, recommend anybody just, to take something difficult on and just see what they can get out of themselves, But
Yeah,
yeah,
class.
so
Well, mate,
thanks for
appreciate your
having me, Ben.
time. Yeah,
Yeah, no, thanks
always.
for having me. Really
We're gonna
appreciate
have
it.
to do this again to talk about golf when you come back to the golf course.
Definitely, mate.
Excited to hear how that goes.
Probably less interesting, but no, thanks for having me, Mike. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. People listening, we will catch you next episode. Thanks for checking in, and yeah, catch you in the next one.